What if the most alarming thing wasn't what you feel, but the fact that you don't even know why you feel this way anymore? You wake up in the morning with the sense that you've just come out of a battle no one else has seen. Your body is still there, still functioning, but something inside of you is out of breath. It's not physical tiredness. It's not just a lack of sleep. It's more insidious. You could sleep for hours, go on vacation, do nothing all day, and yet this weariness clings to your skin like a shadow. A heaviness inside as if your soul were carrying something your mind and body cannot explain. You might tell yourself you just need some rest, but rest doesn't help. Coffee changes nothing. A movie, an outing, a moment with friends. Nothing eases this exhausting emptiness. What if it's not your body speaking? What if it's your soul crying out? A silent complaint smothered in the noise of your daily life. A pain no physical wound could ever show, yet one your heart feels completely. There are truths hidden in our silences that words cannot contain. And this fatigue may be one of them. You're not weak, you're not broken. But maybe you're disconnected. This modern world demands that you run, perform, move faster, always faster. You move forward as if on rails, but without knowing if the destination is even worth it. And one day, your soul can't take it anymore. It pulls the emergency brake. Your body slows down, grows weary, as if desperately trying to force you to look inside. That's when another language begins, the one you never listened to, the language of your soul. This strange, heavy fatigue you've been dragging for weeks, maybe months. It's not a flaw. It's not a bug to be fixed. It might be a call, a hidden invitation to stop, to listen, to face what you've been running from for too long, because sometimes you don't find yourself by running faster, but by stopping. It's in the silence that certain truths break through. And in that silence, it may be your Creator who is speaking to you. Your heart feels dry, your mind distracted, your life full of noise. But deep within you there is a space that needs only one name to come alive again. A name you know, a name you sometimes utter absent-mindedly without realizing its depth. The name of Allah. A name that, when remembered sincerely, brings light back into the darkest corners of your soul. It is in the remembrance of Allah that hearts find peace. And this verse is not mere spiritual poetry, it is an anchor, an unchanging truth. The peace you long for is not an atmosphere or a fleeting moment. It is a state of being, accessible only through reconnection with the one who created you. Even before revelation, the Prophet Muhammad would retreat into the cave of Hira, far from the noise, far from the gaze of others, far even from what glittered on the outside. It wasn't isolation, it was seeking, a deep need for meaning, an inner call nothing in this world could satisfy. And what if your own fatigue today is of the same kind? A modern form of forced spiritual retreat, a need to return to what truly matters beyond appearances, beyond goals, beyond performance. You tried to fill that emptiness with everything the world could offer, and yet it's still there, because the soul is not nourished by noise. It needs sujud. It needs sincere tears, moments where you stop playing a role, where you no longer try to control everything, just you standing before the one who knows, the one who sees what you hide, the one who understands what even you can no longer put into words. And what if this fatigue, far from being a punishment, was proof that your soul is resisting, that it refuses to die in the forgetfulness of its origin? Look around you. This world glorifies endurance, energy, efficiency, but it forgets to speak of what quietly breaks inside people. It glorifies visible successes but ignores silent struggles. Your fatigue may not be a failure. It may be your awakening. A painful awakening, yes, but a necessary one, because your soul deserves more than survival. It was created to live, fully, spiritually, in peace. So before you try to fix what you think is broken, ask yourself a real question. What have you neglected in your connection with Allah? What part of yourself have you suffocated just to move faster? When was the last time you felt true peace, not a neatly packaged distraction? Maybe your body can't go on simply because your soul is tired of being forgotten. And what if this fatigue, this inner collapse, was in reality the invisible hand of your Lord, gently holding you back before you stray too far? A final signal, a final alert, not to make you fall, but to lift you up differently, more grounded, more genuine, closer. You don't need more energy. You need direction. And that direction begins here, in this moment of silent clarity, where your soul is inviting you to return to what truly matters. There is something strange that few dare to say aloud. The further you walk on the path of truth, the more it costs you. Not in money, not in status, but in silence, in solitude, and above all, in fatigue. Not the ordinary fatigue of those who chase after the world, but a nobler, deeper weariness. A fatigue of the soul, not from what you do, but from what you carry. You didn't commit yourself to be glorified. You didn't choose to stay awake at night, to say no when everyone else said yes, in order to be applauded. You did it because your heart could do nothing else. And now that same heart feels out of breath. You wonder why. Why you? Why now? Why this heaviness when your intention is sincere, when your path seems right? And what if this fatigue was not an obstacle, but a confirmation? What if it was the silent signature left by God upon those He has chosen? You didn't seek it. You didn't ask to be tested, but the trial found you. You have become a passageway for truths that others would never have had the courage to face. And it is heavy, very heavy, because truth weighs, especially when it is carried in a world that prefers the comfort of lies. Remember those who were loved before you. None of them were spared from this sacred fatigue. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a seal of distinction. Look at Zayd ibn Haritha, one of the closest companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Not a hero for display. A quiet man, steadfast, almost invisible in the eyes of the world, but in the eyes of the heavens, he shone. He would sometimes walk alone for miles, carrying a message greater than his own life. And one day, he collapsed, not wounded, not sick, just emptied, exhausted. Those around him were troubled, concerned, but the prophet understood. He said gently, "There are bodies that grow weary on earth, but are honored in the heavens." Do you hear that? It was not a word of mere comfort. It was a heavenly truth. A fatigue on earth can be the reflection of an honor in the unseen. You think your exhaustion is proof that you're not moving forward, when in reality it may be proof that you are holding firm, that you're resisting where others would have let go, that you refuse to make peace with what is false, even at the cost of your peace of mind. You think you're tired because you are weak, but what if it's because you have stayed upright while everything else around you has bent? Allah does not entrust burdens of truth to just anyone. He gives them to those He has strengthened within. That does not mean these chosen ones never fall. They do fall, yes, but they fall toward Him. And in their fall, they discover pearls that only broken hearts can see. Perhaps you too are among these quiet ones, those who pray when no one is watching, those who wipe their tears before stepping outside, those who answer evil with calm and doubt with a faith that trembles but does not break. You make no noise, you draw no spotlight. And yet, what you live is immense. Your exhaustion is not empty. It is inhabited. It carries whispered prayers in the night. Courageous refusal, sacrifices no one applauds. There is in the hearts of those Allah chooses a strength interwoven with fatigue, because they do not seek ease but fidelity, because they say no to falsehood even when falsehood pays, because they choose honesty even when it costs. You think you are faltering, but maybe you are, in fact, standing tall, not like those who walk fast, but like those who carry. In a world where everyone longs to be recognized, you accepted being unseen. In a world that glorifies power, you bowed down. And that posture, believe me, it costs. It wears you down. It wounds at times, but it also elevates. And what you carry in silence, Allah sees. What you hold back on the edge of tears, He hears. What you do when no one is watching, He rewards. So ask yourself this: what if what you are living is not just another trial, but a sign of love? What if this fatigue is the discreet seal of souls that are near to Him? A seal that few recognize, but that in the unseen makes you an honored being. You may not be broken. You may be in the process of being elevated, because some do not fall because they have failed, but because they have been chosen to carry what others have no strength to lift. The world only sees those who shine, but Allah sees those who endure, those who fall 7 times and rise 8, those who, even exhausted, still answer the call to prayer, those who, in their weariness, find sincerity. You are not forgotten. You are known, seen, loved. So even if everything feels heavy, even if every step seems to demand immense effort, keep going. Not because it is easy, but because it is true. And truth, even when exhausting, always leads back to Allah. It is not your body slowing you down. It is your soul speaking to you, but you are not listening. It does not scream like physical pain. It does not impose itself like a medical emergency. No, it whispers. And if you don't lean in to hear it, you miss it. What you have been feeling lately, that sense of emptiness, that constant heaviness, that lack of desire without clear reason, may not be a lack of motivation or a passing low. It may be a sacred language, a language forgotten in a world that speaks only of productivity, performance, profitability. A world where slowing down is seen as failure when in reality it may be subtle guidance. You sleep enough. You eat your fill. You do nothing particularly exhausting. And yet every morning you wake up with the sense of having run a marathon. Your mind is numb. Your heart is on standby. And despite all your efforts, nothing seems enough to recover that energy you once had. This is where the real question begins. What if it is not your lifestyle, but your inner state that is asking to be reevaluated? There exists a fatigue that cannot be healed by rest, but only by meaning. A fatigue that does not call for a break, but for realignment. It is as if your soul, thrown off center from what is essential, were pulling at the rope to bring you back to what you've neglected. You move forward, you check boxes, you do what is expected of you, but you no longer resonate. And in that emptiness, in that lack of flavor, may lie one of the clearest signs of spiritual disconnection. Allah has said, "We will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves." Surah Fussilat 41:53. And what if this sign, for you, was not an outward event, but this inward slowing down, this subtle call hidden in your weariness? You must learn to distinguish between 2 kinds of fatigue. The first is the one everyone understands. Too much noise, too many tasks, not enough rest. That one can be fixed with a planner, healthier habits, a little discipline. But the other fatigue is far more mysterious. It shows up when everything seems fine, when your schedule is light, when you have time for yourself, when there are no major problems. And yet, you feel empty. The heart is dull, the soul absent. That's when the question becomes urgent. What is this fatigue trying to tell me? Sometimes, Allah does not send you a spectacular trial, a shock, or a loss. Sometimes He simply sends you a sudden lack of interest, a loss of taste for what once energized you, a subtle but constant imbalance. You grow bored where you used to smile. You withdraw when you once loved being surrounded. You feel a quiet rejection of distractions, even the lightest ones. It is subtle, but deep. And what if this reaction were not a sign of mental weakness, but the sigh of your soul, ignored for far too long? There are moments when your soul begins to remember that it was created for something else, not only for pleasures, nor even just for the responsibilities of daily life. It was shaped for God. And when it drifts too far from Him, it withers. That fatigue then becomes a mercy, a kind of mist that God gently lets fall upon your heart, not to blind you, but to make you slow down, to make you look elsewhere, beyond what the world imposes on you. Some of the most powerful signs are not visible on the outside. They appear within you. Unexplained tears, a sudden desire for solitude, heightened sensitivity to spiritual words, rejection of even familiar noise. And what if these were not symptoms, but responses? Responses to a call you have not yet put into words. You may be standing at the crossroads of a major inner shift, not a depression, but a spiritual transition. A moment when Allah, in His wisdom, is gently redirecting you back to Him. The scholars have said, when the heart drifts away from Allah, the body grows restless. But when it draws near, it breaks in order to be reborn. This fatigue, then, is not an end, but a beginning. Like a seed that must first split before becoming a plant, your heart may need to crack open to let the light in once more. Rebirth does not always look like fireworks. Sometimes it begins in weariness, in silent exhaustion, in quiet doubt. But it is there, in the unseen, that God is at work. What if, instead of running from this tiredness, you approached it? What if you sat with it, like you would sit with a messenger bringing a message? Maybe it's not trying to make you fall, but to wake you up. Allah speaks to His servants in 1,000 ways, through words, through loss, through a meeting, but also through a worried heart, a tired mind, a shortness of breath with no clear cause. What you're experiencing may not need to be fixed, but understood. You are not broken. You are in transition. And what you see as a crisis could very well be a slow birth. Breathe. Listen. Let this tiredness guide you, not to rest, but to return. God doesn't always show Himself through strength. Sometimes it is in the collapse, in the moment when you no longer have the ability to hide your weakness, when even appearances fail you. You control nothing. You don't know if you are moving forward or just holding on to avoid falling. And it is there, right there, that something happens. When you have nothing left to offer but your exhaustion, you raise your hands to the sky without many words, without the eloquence of formal prayers. Just a raw truth. Lord, I can't take it anymore. You may think it's a desperate cry, but it may be a sacred one. The kind that crossed the desert with Moses, that was breathed into Miriam's chest, that settled in Eunice's heart in the depths of the sea. This cry, this extreme weariness, this total tiredness is also a language. And God understands this language perfectly. Moses, peace be upon him, reached this breaking point. After fleeing Egypt, alone, broken, pursued, hungry, he walks until he can go no further. He doesn't know what lies ahead. He has nothing, no plan, no army, not even a home, only fatigue and the unknown. And as he collapses under the shade of a tree, he asks for nothing, no glory, no revenge, no miracle. He simply says, "Lord, I truly need the good you will send me." Simple words, authentic, a prayer from a man who has no pride left to defend, just an open heart, ready to receive. And that is when everything changes, not because he spoke powerful words, but because his exhaustion was sincere. He didn't try to appear strong, he showed his truth. And it is in that truth that God responded. For there is in sincere trials a closeness to God that even voluntary acts cannot reach. Look around you. There are modern-day Moseses everywhere, not on thrones, not leading nations, but in quiet kitchens, in small offices, in crowded subways, mothers juggling raising children, loneliness, and sleepless nights spent praying without anyone knowing. Fathers who rise before dawn, broken but dignified, providing for their families without complaint. Young people struggling against their own contradictions, who despite falling continue to seek meaning, to seek light. They don't show miracles, they don't split the seas, but they move forward in the quiet of a humble faith, and that silence is heard. Their bodies are tired, but their souls hold on. The world doesn't celebrate them, but the heavens recognize them. They don't shine in success charts, but in the invisible records of endurance. These are the true resilient ones, not those who impose their power, but those who hold firm in the darkness with God as their only light. And you, in your tiredness, in your feeling of being abandoned, you think you are forgotten. But what if you are actually seen? What if the pain you feel is proof that you are on the path? You hold on, not because you are stronger than others. You hold on because God supports you in the shadows. You hold on because you have placed your faith, even if it trembles, above your desires. And that is a form of greatness this world does not understand. Those whom God loves are not always those who shine. Sometimes they are the ones who fall, but in the right direction. And what if your collapse is not a decline, but a passage, a transition to something stronger? God does not humiliate those he elevates. And often it is by bringing you to your knees that he prepares you to rise again, not more visible, but more real. It is easy to be a believer when everything is going well, but it takes a rare inner light to continue praying when your heart is broken, to continue saying, Alhamdulillah, when your eyes are still full of tears. It takes rooted faith to choose to stand when everything in you calls for surrender. And this faith cannot be taught. It is forged. It is sometimes wrested from pain. It is earned through sleepless nights, inner struggles, and quiet sacrifices. Do you want to know if you are close to God? Look at what you do when you are tired, when no one is watching, when you could let go of everything, but you still hold on, out of respect, out of love, out of humility before your Lord. That is where it all happens. That is where faith becomes real. Not in grand statements, but in the humble choice to continue, even when exhausted. Do not confuse your exhaustion with a curse. It may be an answer. It may be an honor. In trial and fatigue, there is sometimes a hidden gift, intimacy with God, a connection that is not built in ease, but through effort. And if your tiredness is the price of that closeness, then it is worth it. Because in the end, what your soul seeks is not the rest of the body. It is the peace of the heart. And only the one who created you can give you that peace. There is a weariness that even rest cannot erase. It settles like a shadow in the light, quietly, slowly, until it takes over completely. You keep living, talking, sometimes laughing, but inside something wavers. You couldn't explain it clearly, and yet you feel it deeply. It is a tiredness that doesn't touch your muscles or your sleep, but your breath. A tiredness that doesn't say, "I'm tired of moving," but "I'm tired of losing myself." And what if it's not a discomfort to run from, but a message to listen to? What if, instead of exhausting yourself trying to silence it, you dared to respond? What you feel may not be depression, weakness, or instability. It may simply be the logical result of forgetfulness. Forgetfulness of your heart, of your connection with the one who gave you life. Because in running after expectations, projects, distractions, you have gradually drifted away from what has always made you feel alive. You didn't do it on purpose. No one consciously chooses to abandon their soul. But sometimes life accelerates, and you only realize too late that you left your heart behind. And then in this race, something breaks. Not violently, not like a shock, but like a small crack that widens day by day, until you no longer feel the flavor of things. It's not that everything is wrong. It's that nothing speaks to you anymore. You laugh without believing it. You live without feeling. You pretend to rejoice, but deep down, you are absent. And what if this emptiness was the space God invites you to fill differently? Not with more activity, but with more meaning. It's not that you need to do more. You need to return. Return to the simplicity of faith, to the gentleness of remembrance, to the light of a sincere moment between you and your Lord. It is not about adding obligations, but about rediscovering the essentials. A prayer that is not rushed, a supplication that does not seek to persuade, but to confide, a dhikr that soothes, gently cleaning the dust accumulated on your heart. Sometimes fatigue is the only thing your soul can still express. It has no words left, no clarity, so it lets your body speak for it. Through exhaustion, it makes one last appeal. It begs you to stop, not to sleep, but to hear, to see what you refuse to look at, to feel what you have anesthetized for too long. It is not your body that is sick. It is your heart that is thirsty. And in this thirst, in this emptiness, in this fatigue, there may be the greatest proof that God has not abandoned you. Because if you were completely lost, you would feel nothing. You would have sunk into indifference. But if this weariness weighs on you, if it calls to you, if it forces you to reflect, then it is because your soul is resisting. It wants to live. And God never closes the door to a soul that returns. You don't need to be perfect to return. You just need to be sincere. To say in one breath, "I don't know where to start, but I want to come back." And Allah will welcome you, just as He welcomed those before you. Just as He has always welcomed those who, tired of everything, still choose to return to Him. Remember, O tranquil soul, return to your Lord, pleased and pleasing to Him. This verse is not only for saints, it is addressed to every soul seeking peace in the direction of Allah. And maybe this fatigue is not a sign of failure, but a call to calm, a call to set down the burden, to stop carrying everything alone, to admit that your soul needs something this world cannot give. Returning to God doesn't mean giving up everything. It means redirecting what you do, what you feel, what you live. It means praying with your heart, not out of habit, reading not for information, but for elevation, speaking to Allah not as a judge, but as a refuge. You don't have to wait to be strong to return. It is precisely your weakness that is the key. So now, ask yourself sincerely, How much longer will you let your soul speak without answering? How many more days will you ignore this inner discomfort that, at its core, wants only one thing: to guide you toward more light? Maybe it is not a punishment. Maybe it is not a mistake. Maybe this fatigue is your awakening, a turning point. The moment when you change direction, not to run away, but to rediscover what you have always known deep inside, that only Allah can heal what you feel. So breathe, take a moment, return to what matters, to the light, to prayer that comes from the heart. Return to the one who only waits for a sincere gesture from you to open a peace that no one and nothing can ever take away. And if today you fall, know that tomorrow Allah can lift you higher than you've ever been. He does not wait for your perfection, but for your call, so answer Him. Delay no longer. If this message has resonated with you, do not keep it to yourself. Share it. Make it a light for other tired hearts. Subscribe to not miss the next reminders, and together, let us continue to move forward, tired, yes, but guided.